Apparently, the typical smartphone user, not typical nor smart in my case, will touch his or her phone, get this, 2,000 times a day. 2,000 times a day? Really? On average, we spend around 3.5 hours on our phones, and this attachment to our phones has to have some sort of impact, doesn't it? Experts say it's affecting our sleep, it's damaging our ability to retain information in the short term, and the correlation between smartphone addiction and depression is apparently quite alarming. It's also bound to affect our relationships. How often have you been out for lunch with somebody and they spend as much time looking at their phone as they do at you across the table from them? How do we somehow break this cycle of dependency? Do we need to? Dr. Johnny is on the line. I'm delighted to say hello, Dr. Johnny Bloomfield. First of all, do we need to break this cycle of a relationship, an ongoing, and some would say obsessive relationship with our phones?
Good morning, John. Yeah, I think you've got it spot on there. I'm by no means immune to this problem myself. I'm often getting told by my wife about how much I'm on my phone, how much I'm using my phone, and hopefully this conversation this morning just raises a little bit of awareness for ourselves and for our listeners today, just to kind of maybe reflect on how much time we're using our phones, but also how much time we're using it in the presence of others, because that, like you just said, it can be quite damaging for relationships.
It is. I know the word addiction is bandied about, and it's a word that we should be very, very careful in using. But in some cases, it does look like an addiction. And as you walk down the street, you see people who are oblivious to their own safety and to the safety of others, whilst they are engrossed in what important information or contact or social contact that they have through their telephones. And surely that is dangerous or damaging, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's lots of footage on YouTube and so on of people wandering about the streets having near misses or close calls while they are texting while walking, for example. Yes, I think there's addiction could be one word for it. Some people might think that's an appropriate word. Some people might not. Then we've got dependence. We seem to have this real reliance and dependence on our phones. I would say our phones are probably never within arm's reach. Very rarely would be further than arm's reach. And as a species, we're incredibly curious as part of our makeup. So our first place where we'll go to look an answer to a question that arrives in our head is probably going to be our phones, isn't it?
Yeah, and they're wonderful for that. You know, the world is available through our telephones. Going back to what we were talking about earlier, about exams being simply tests of memory, which are no longer required. We do not need to harvest information from our minds anymore, because it's all there on our phones. We can access any information we want through our phones, and that surely is a really, really good thing. However, this dependency that you've referred to, surely that can be damaging. And do you have any sense of how damaging it can be?
Yeah, so there's researchers have coined this phrase, I'm assuming from America, called Technoference. It's shorthand for technology-based interference, which sounds a little bit like American football, really. So that's whenever our phone disturbs us while we're in the presence of another person. So in other words, it pings or it dings or it buzzes, and we're then interrupted and distracted from the conversation or from paying full attention to that person across the way. And then we go to another level, which is called phubbing, believe it or not. So it's called phone snub. And that's when I pull my phone out in the presence of that other person and explore what that notification was all about. So I'm deliberately prioritizing my phone over my time with another person, with a relationship. So whenever you, for example, if you're dating somebody and this happens, this can be very damaging, because it invokes envy and jealousy, and it also lets that other person know that you're not my priority here. I've got other priorities that are more important, or I will dedicate my attention ahead of you. So it doesn't say it doesn't really help with a healthy bond for people. So we have to be very careful, not only just in the phubbing, the actual act of it, but the technoference. So we have to be mindful of silencing our phones, making sure they don't buzz, or you can have that dedicated time with that other person without being digitally disturbed. If you have phones in the bedroom, are also another really, really damaging place to go, because if that happens in a place where you're supposed to be closer together, then that can be really damaging for relationships. But I think the one that we should all really be concentrating on is how technoference and phubbing impacts our parenting. And
yes.
when we are not giving our children their full attention, it's really damaging into that parent-child relationship. And it also, they're learning about the world. They're learning what is the world and how do things form. It's what they learn from the start, and how might it damage their future relationships as when they turn into adults. So we have to be very, very careful about how much usage of our phones we have in their presence. And most parents will know that if you're on your phones, you're engaging less with the kids, but the kids want to get the parents' attention, so they'll start to act out more. They'll have tantrums. They'll be more angry. They'll sulk more. They'll whine, and then as parents, we can start to withdraw from that behaviour and take refuge deeper into our screens. So we just create this vicious cycle.
That behaviour that you've just described there, that's not exclusive to children, you know.
No, it's not. It's not.
I've been known to whine and throw the odd tantrum myself.
Plenty of adults can act a lot like children as well. So,
yes.
So to counteract this, John, what we should maybe think about doing: have a review of your phone, and then start to think of turning off any non-urgent notifications, the pings and the dings that you're getting that aren't really important. I know some people have got the news notifications, and when have you ever got a news notification that's been good news? So
good
you
point.
could be relaxing at home and you hear that audio from the news, and it's like, what's happened now? It's always instills a panic. So consider your attachment to the news, and take more control of when you consume it and when you stay away from it. Then what about unsubscribing from things like any lists that you don't need to be on? What's ultimately causing noise, background noise in your life that just doesn't need to be there, could be removed. Getting rid of the sounds and the vibrations, especially when it's family time. So you might want to look at using airplane mode, do not disturb, or on your smartwatch as well, because the notifications come through there. Try and get onto do not disturb. A really good hack for people in the evenings. If you have got a real strong urge, or you're paying a lot of attention to your phone at night, try to use a setting called grayscale, where it drains the color out. It's maybe in the accessibility settings, whereby you remove any of the color, and it's suddenly your smartphone becomes really dull and boring, and you have therefore less interest in it whenever you're using it. So your usage will go down, but also your temptation to pick it back up again will also reduce, because it's just not as exciting with all the color drained out of it. And then taking this to another level, think about taking smartphone breaks. I said earlier about how the smartphone is probably within arm's reach all the time. Let's try and get that distance a little bit further. Some families I know of have a device box, particularly around mealtime. The devices go in the box, and we all have dedicated family time. And the device box can be for overnight as well, or for there's dedicated family time. And start to try and increase your breaks away from your phone. Don't have it so close. Have it set aside, and actually maybe think about taking going out for a walk maybe without your phone, and I know that might instill a bit of panic in a few people, but try it and see how much it could relieve you, and eventually try and get up to a full day without having to need your phone, or going completely offline would be another remark. Imagine going offline for 24 hours. Like,
but it's about self-control, isn't it? It's about it's about improving how we parent and how we deal with our relationships. I got an interesting text here which says, "Hi John, I couldn't do my job without the smartphone, but recently I've decided to put my phone away after 6 p.m. as I would constantly be available and be on my phone." The other thing is, I think because of mobiles, people think that you are on call at all times of the day and expect to be able to get you. That's Alf, the shower doctor. And I think that that's not just to do with someone's professional life, but also in their personal life, because we expect others to have their phone attached to them 24 hours a day, that therefore they are available to chat or to contact through social media 24 hours a day.
And we have created a society of instant gratification. And you know what? I thought about this the other day. Do you know what we've eliminated? We've eliminated boredom.
I love being bored. It's
great. The next
great.
time you're in the coffee shop, watch everyone in the queue in the coffee shop, and everyone's on their phone. No one's just standing in the queue waiting like we used to do. Everyone's on their device.
And is boredom good for you?
I think boredom's brilliant. I think we try and teach our kids boredom. It's great for creativity. It's great to kind of good for imagination. But if we fill their imagination with we remove that by filling it up with any sort of stimulation, then we're harming that creativity.
We are.
And it's really important to go through life at times and be bored and embrace boredom and silence and stillness and calmness. It's the balance we got to have against being stressed. Go a couple of nights without TV. If TV in the evenings, you're what you do every night. Try and do 2 nights in a row without any TV. Just sit and be bored. Maybe listen to music or do something different. Do something that's not your normal thing, and try and embrace a bit of mindless activity.
It's about breaking the cycles, isn't it? Breaking the dependency and showing some self-control, or as you say, lateral thinking, moving beyond what we normally do to give ourselves a healthier life.
I agree.
Yeah. Johnny, it's always great to talk to you, and thank you so much for sharing that with us this morning.
Thank you, John.
Thanks a million.
For the time on the radio again.
Take care now. Bye-bye. Dr. Johnny Bloomfield.